Thanks, James. We've been very lucky to have him this year. He's played a big role in many of our events for CURLSASK and actually headed up the ladies' Scotties in Humboldt this year, so he did a great job at that. Up next, we've got Scott Comfort. A little fun fact about Scott. About 10 years ago, little Daniel Selke was out for his first job, and Scott Comfort was my boss. And so that was at the Tartan Curling Club, where he was the manager. That was 2009, around there, 8 to 11 or so. So yeah, we've got to know each other quite well, and happy to have you here, so thanks, Scott.
Yeah, as mentioned, Scott Comfort, I have managed the Tartan Curling Club in Regina. I've now am in Wadena back home, a small town of 1,100 people, so I have experience on the marketing side when it comes to dealing with big corporations, also all the way down to your local club level. And I'll tell you right now that there is no right answer for how to attract sponsorship to your club. Every club's different, every sponsor is different. You could have the same company 2 years in a row with a different marketing person, and all of a sudden you have to approach it different. So when I moved back to Wadena, I'll focus most of this talk on that, but if you guys have any questions about city stuff, I can probably answer that too. I moved back to Wadena, there was barely any sponsorship. You had your typical scoreboard sponsorship on the signs, and that's about it. I started looking out to try to get some more in-ice advertising, because I know that's something that's very popular with the advertisers. And one of the things we did is we made sure that we didn't overprice it. If you ask too much, and you're going to waste a lot of time and energy just trying to find sponsors. I find, especially in a small town, if you make it affordable, you'll get a lot of support with people just wanting to help out the club rather than looking for it as an actual advertising opportunity. There's that as well too. So I think it was probably my second year back there. Steve Molding and I, who was the president at the time, were installing the rings. And I think it took us a good 16-hour day, with a bunch of breaks in there, of course, but it's a good 16-hour day to find the centers, scribe the lines, paint them, clean up, clean again, paint some more, clean again. So at the end of the day, I said, we need to get some vinyl rings, and his response is, well, our board's not going to pay for that. And I said, well, I'll find sponsors. So that year, during the year, I kind of just made a few phone calls to a few local sponsors and text messages, and I sent, I think, about 7 or 8 messages out, and I got 6 yeses right away. And we had 4 sheets of ice. Then I realized, oh wait, we got 2 sides. So 2-year contracts, flip them over, and we had all of a sudden we have 8 sponsors, and we have a lineup for more sponsors looking for the full house Jet Ice rings. Like I said, it's a little different when you go from a city club to a small town club. In the city, a lot of times I had to focus my marketing and trying to, focus my advertising and my sponsor recruitment a little differently. I had to focus on things like how many hits our website got, how many people through the building, how many eyeballs are going to see all the advertising. When you're dealing with someone that you maybe don't know as well, that's what you got to focus on quite a bit. Moving into a small town, it's a little more of them wanting to help the club out. Someone you know, it's a club member that's also a sponsor. But that does ring true in the cities too. The Tartan, it was a small, well-knit community, and there's a lot of sponsors there that are writing new membership. So before you start going out knocking on Coca-Cola's door or Viterra's or some big corporate sponsors, don't forget to check your own membership for your sponsors, because a lot of times they want to help out too. I think I kind of mentioned, then got off topic. It's a lot of a lot of seasoned ice makers aren't huge fans of sometimes these full house rings, because they don't look like the traditional blue and red. I highly recommend them. I said it took us 16 hours to do rings the one day. I think I did that with my 12-year-old nephew. I got all 8 rings in about 2 hours. And most of that was just spending time trying to find the exact middle, but they go in easy, they go out very easy. So if your club doesn't have these yet, I highly recommend them. They also have Jet Ice, or whoever, keep saying Jet Ice because that's who I end up using, but there's other companies out there that do it as well. We have those textiles that go in the ice. I think I saw the other day there's someone had an ice maker poster where it was the Hershey Bears in the States for hockey, and they were hand painting a bear on the ice. And I said, I remember doing that. And I remember you had to make your sponsorship worth a lot more because you're spending like 8 hours per logo painting those things. So those go in very easy. They're very visible for your sponsors. They're very attractive, and like I said, between the in-ice and the rings, just the regular square logos, I think we have about 25 now sponsors, and our sponsorship has gone through the roof, and that's helped keep the doors open, especially with the dwindling liquor sales with the new liquor laws. So it's a revenue that comes from outside your membership, where a lot of our clubs are relying on just their membership for their sponsor for their revenues. Something definitely to look for. Again, I had for the Farmers Edge Bonspiel we have, I put out a package there, did a nice professional package, talked about how many people it was going to bring to the community, talked about spin-off into the community, how much economic impact there was going to be. Did a nice big professional presentation, and it ended up being my lead's brother who ended up sponsoring it. I didn't have to do any of that, but it, when they asked me to come up and talk about how I do sponsorship, how I get sponsors to come to our club, it depends. It's every situation is different. Most of the time, it's who you know, not what you know. The reason that they originally asked me to come in is to talk about how I got Remax as a sponsor for our title sponsorship. Well, I work for Remax, and Remax called me and said, "You know any facilities I want that we can title sponsor?" So that one was another one where it's kind of, I could talk about how I got that one, but it was kind of just kind of fell in our lap. So there is companies out there looking for something like that. The big thing is that we made sure to listen to them and see what they wanted. They did approach quite a few different communities in the east half of the province, Remax Realty did, and we made sure to listen to what they wanted, exactly what they wanted, and they may have paid a little more for our club, knowing that they were going to get exactly what they wanted out of it. So even little things like you may notice in the top corner, I made sure to add the Remax, we need a Remax Green Club logo. So everything that I do on Facebook, everything I do, make sure that you tag the logos because they notice that. I know I get approached quite often as a realtor to sponsor things, and those little things definitely don't go unnoticed. They go unnoticed when you don't include them quite often. So you gotta just make sure that you can listen to your sponsors, see what they want. Back to the Farmers Edge SAS Tour spiel we got. We'd also have some other levels of sponsorship, and again, we had a package set out. This is what you're gonna get, blah, blah, blah. Well, we have 4 sponsors for the events and 4 sponsors for each sheet. Not any 2 of those are the same in the end, because someone wants more hospitality, somebody wants more tickets to send their people there, someone just wants more internet advertising, some just want to help the club. So again, you have to be very adaptable when you're talking about bringing in sponsors. If anyone's in the eastern half of the province, which maybe not more in Saskatoon, but Remax is still looking for more title sponsorship too, so you can always give me a call on that too. But there is companies out there willing to do things like this, especially if they're helping out the community. You just gotta make sure to ask and find the right people. That last one.
The video, or there's a couple of packages.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so this again, I did talk about the packages here. This is one of our older ones for the nice logos. The price has gone up since then, so you can ignore that price. But basically, this is what I sent out, especially when you had some of those companies that did have a marketing department, made it a little more higher end company, a little more professional company. These things help with that. You go to the next one. So there's a bunch of different things that we have. That's just basically what we have for advertising. And again, once we start getting into events and stuff like that, then we customize our deals a lot more to what the sponsor wants.
Video?
Sure. So this is for any of the ice makers out there that don't want to do the full ice, full ice rings. This is basically what time lapse video will be installing the ice. There's a few more floods involved, but I skipped all that. So anyway, anyone that doesn't have those full house rings, I love them as an ice maker. I love them as someone that does the sponsorship recruitment. It's one of our major sources of revenue now for our club. They go in easy. And when I left, I think it was about midnight. The Chicken and Wine Bonspiel ended at about midnight on a Saturday night. I flipped the switch off and walked out the door, and I went back about a week later. And there's still a bit of ice, but basically let everything melt out, so you don't have to worry about cleaning up paint and whatever else. Kind of touched on ice making already. Any questions about anything?
We had a couple before you start on the rings. So do you paint your white?
We have the vinyl mesh now,
Oh, okay.
so I don't have any paint on my ice at all.
And you have drainage to just let it completely melt away.
Very fortunate. I should say that because I guess in Fulton Lake, I did their ice this year as well. They install and tear down, and this time comes some consulting for some members to actually do the ice, and they have sand base and paint, but still got the rings, which you basically just gotta try to get them all as soon as possible. So that white's almost impossible to get off sometimes.
Yeah, it's a struggle when you don't have drainage to
Yeah.
that. How do you get them?
But I kind of touched more on a lot of ice making stuff, and part of that is in our area too. There's a lot of resistance to doing some of these in-ice ring logos, and they're very, very popular with kids. They come in, and the first time they saw it, they thought curling looked cool for once. They're very popular with the sponsors. I have a waiting list for people that want to get them again. So if your ice maker's bucking it, tell them to try it, because it's it's very nice and easy to do too. So.
What do you charge for sponsorship levels?
I think we're $750 for 2 years. So, but I mean, we only have a town of 1,100 people, right? So the larger centers obviously you charge a little more. Fulton Lake, I have a set rings there for my own business, and I think I pay $800 for 2 years there. And again, we do 2 years because you do one end at the away, 1 year at the away end, and 1 year at the home end. Just so your exposure is the same over 2 years, but maybe a little less. Actually, the away end ones are almost better because we got overhead cameras, so you get lots of visibility in the lounge. So.
Does that include sending us a logo with all that?
Because the original plan for this was just to kind of get rid of the paint, which is a high expense as well. We kind of did part of the first 2 year plan was that you got the rings included. Now we're on seventh year probably. We're still using the same rings as the first year, other than a couple that have switched out. So you save money on the cost as far as paint and everything too. Plus you get some happy sponsors.